Hello, is there a fire?
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Trout Spinners podcast with Miles and Gary.
Hello, I'm Gary.
I'm Gary.
I'm
How are
Gary.
you doing?
Gary.
How are you doing?
I'm Gary.
I'm
Oh,
Gary.
doing yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
It's
got
coming home. It's coming
Huh?
home.
What?
Football. It's coming home.
Yeah, football's back.
Premiership football is back at last. League football.
Miles is
League-based
mental about
football.
Miles is mental about football. He just
Oh, I have not.
Mars hates football, but I love it, but not fanatically, but I like it. But once Mars and I actually sat down and watched a game together, it was England's fourth place playoff in the World Cup, because he was due to come down that day, and like it was the worst game ever. But he actually, to be fair to you sat down and watched it. So
I don't mind the World Cup. It doesn't feel like normal football. With normal football, it doesn't feel like it matters. This, like, World Cup feels like the results actually mean something.
yeah, what do you think? How do you feel about our World Cup squad in general? The strength and depth in it.
They're good, aren't they? There's
I
good.
just want to talk for 5 or 10 minutes about that.
I love Alan Shearer and Michael
Yeah,
Owen. He's
yeah.
good. Oh,
That's what we're dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, so
I remember those names. Do you remember those?
yeah, well done, mate. They're some of the most famous people in this country. But anyway, congratulations. I know Hugh Bonneville. That's the equivalent. But yeah, it's the D Trout Spinners. Little retrospective on the Ricky Gervais show, XFM. You know, if you're tuning in by now, I think you know. I like to say that at the beginning, but
Yeah.
we're getting new listeners. But I mean, before we sort of get into the meat of the show, the last show we did was a Dutch or Otherwise. You can catch that on the platforms that this show's on. And but the show,
I know you pretend to know how this
yeah,
stuff
I know
works.
it's some platform or something. I don't know.
Check it out in the airwaves of just stand outside next to a tower. Just listen to that.
Absolutely. But the show before that was our interview with Andrew Phillips. Now, it's been a while since we interviewed Andrew Phillips, but it was a great experience, wasn't it? Because it was kind of, I mean, we're not interviewers. That will come across, I'm sure. We don't interview perfectly. But to interview Ricky Gervais's old boss it was quite amazing, and it was nice to get those little insights from him.
Yeah, I was a bit on a high actually after that, I have to say.
It was good. But yeah, I was thinking there's a lot of things I'm reflecting on, but I won't go through them all. But
your romantic relationships, your career,
my
career.
What gravestone to get. But I just one moment it made me really like Ricky even more, because Andrew said when he was talking about the story of when Ricky came back to XFM, Andrew said Ricky came to me and said, I'll come back, but this time I do not press my own buttons. I won't press my own buttons. I want a producer. And he said it in that way, and that's what Andrew said. Now, there are many people like in media who would make quite an arrogant request like that, but there are very, very few who, when they're on air and that period comes up that they want to talk about, they detail it exactly how it happened. Like Ricky, the way Ricky talks about that is exactly what Andrew said. Like, so a lot of people would make that arrogant request, but Ricky relayed exactly what happened. Like he said, I do not press my own buttons anymore. And when he talks about it, that's exactly what he says. And I just think that's it reflects very well on Ricky, like, and his honesty, because he is arrogant, and it's an arrogant request to make. And lots of people in media would have made a request in that way that was quite arrogant. But very few, if any, would, when they come to tell the story of it, would relay exactly how it happened, because exactly what Andrew said is pretty much exactly what Ricky said on there. And there was
he's obviously never had any sort of formal media training. He's always just sort of led with honesty and
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not just, a lot of people get into media without any formal media training. It's not to do with how relaxed he is or comes across. It's his honesty. When
Yeah.
he describes situations, like, it would be most presenters who would make that arrogant request, when if they come to tell the story of how Karl joined the station, they'll say something like, well, and the second time, we came back and we've moved on in our careers, and XFM, there's bigger budget, and they offered us a producer, and it was Karl, and the rest is history. He could so easily have said something like that, but no. When he tells the story, he says, I came to them, I said, I do not press my own buttons,
See you
and
later.
see you later. Yeah, so anyway, but it was very nice to get little feedback, little inside information like that from Andrew, that even though that piece of information we do know because Ricky's detailed it, but like to get confirmation that was actually true. It was just a night, and there was many examples of that I won't go through, but please do check out the episode and let us know what you think.
But for now,
we're getting on to 2003. Miles is now going to read some things he's written with a little pen. A little bit of preamble. Go for it, Miles. Don't slur. Don't mess up your words.
All right.
Let's
have a go. Let's do it professional. All right. So today we're going to be talking about episode 19, season 2, 4th of January 2003. Ricky and Steve are astounded to learn that Karl has bought his girlfriend an industrial-sized box of condoms for Christmas. So it's a new year. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
We are. 2000.
Can I just say, I think it's episode 20, by the way, not 19.
Oh, see,
I might be wrong on that, but I think
could be wrong. Anyway, go ahead and listen to if you haven't listened to the original show already, do check out the link which we'll post in the description of this episode, and then you can come back and have a little debrief with Miles and Gary.
Absolutely, and welcome back. It's the magic of radio, like as if that. I sort of was pretending like as if they'd just done it, but I was saying it straight after, but yeah. Oh god. But
so what are your initial thoughts, Gary, on this ep?
Yeah, I like it. It's a good one. There's good features. There's features that only see the light of day in this episode, which are like rituals, which is just very well. We've done it. Oh, we've been doing that. Well, we've done it, which I love. But I think I've said this before, like on other shows, I kind of see it as a little bit of a watershed, and I'll be interested in other people's opinions on that, because it might just be.
You've used the word watershed about 50 times.
Yeah, but I like to be clear when I'm saying something. But I kind of see it because pre-2003, the show, it's like a cake that's being baked, and all the ingredients are being put in and everything. From 2003 onwards, this is how I see it in my head. It's like the cake has been baked.
What kind of cake would it be?
Bitter. No, it would be. But I kind of see it like as fully formed show now. Like they start off straight away, like Karl's the producer, and then Steve goes, I laugh when I hear Karl's name and that word. He didn't do that much in 2002. They did antagonize Karl. I think the antagonism goes up a level, and I like it. There's a run of really good shows from now as well, I think, and a lot of good quotes and a lot of memorable moments. What are your thoughts, mate?
Especially because they've just come back, and you're talking about features that don't see the light of day, including Around the World in 80 Gervais.
Well, that doesn't even see the light of day in this episode. It's just the name.
But it's Karl sort of, he hasn't really got everything planned officially. He's kind of shoddily put some stuff together and like half thought about it, like rituals, and it's good to have an India. They're just facts, aren't they, with a title.
But to be fair to Karl, and Karl says this, and I totally believe Karl. He's like, Karl has come up with loads of features, to be fair. Some of them are shitty, and some he knows won't go on. He just is saying them because he knows it'll be funny to Ricky. But there's some features like that are kind of like, I think rituals, he probably genuinely intended for that to go like beyond this episode. But he says at one point, like, I gave you the name Ridiculous. You didn't come up with anything. And Ricky, right at the end, comes up with something. Usually the presenters are the ones coming up with the ideas, not the producer. The presenters will come up with the ideas. The producers will kind of manage that and integrate their ideas into the show and do that, edit them in and things like that. But Karl is the one coming up with all the ideas. Ricky can't be bothered. So even though Karl's come up with some shitty ideas, I do feel for Karl because he's the only one doing it. Steve hasn't come up with anything. Steve I love Ricky. I love Steve, but they're not very their work ethic is quite questionable during this period.
Well, why they're in the mission. It's got a very good educating Ricky this week.
It's not educating Ricky, is it? It's because he does it in like facts that are related. So it's what do you think of that then? Getting Ricky. No, my favourite is. I mean, I just love Hitler has just moved his queen. For some reason, I just find that very funny, and I love him telling the story about chess and the world chess champion, and him just not understanding anything. That I like.
I like him when he gets all of his dates wrong, and like the battle and war bit with the war. Do you think of that feature?
Yeah, I like it when he says, which battle? World War II. That's not a battle.
Yeah, it's a battle. which one? Yeah, it was a battle.
Yeah, there's one bit actually which they talk about and then they never mention again. And I've always wondered, this story, correct me if I'm wrong, has never come up again. But Karl mentions about towards the end that he's been, I'll tell you about the time I slept in my car. But that never, they just forget or whatever. And I've often wondered what that's like. I don't know, like it's quite bleak, isn't it, to sleep in your car? Like I'd love to have heard that story, but we never do. Sadly.
Can you imagine like how many stories that Karl has omitted from like the radio shows that we never got to hear, and all the while the mad because he does talk about a few more of them in the podcasts, but obviously you can't be expected to keep coming up with like wild and wacky stuff, can you? Like
no
you would run out of stuff eventually, wouldn't you? You can't even doing the podcasts, it's talking about like Scruffy Sandra and the pig-headed woman of Manchester Square though. That's
but he's far more forthcoming than most people. Like you could listen to someone on radio for 10 years and not really know anything about their childhood or before they're on radio. They might mention it once or twice. To be fair to Karl, prompted by Ricky, he talks about his childhood actually a lot. So I don't think there's that much more that happened. Of course, there are things that happened would be interesting to know. But a heck of a lot of what happened to him, he does actually talk about. So which makes the show so interesting. Not this episode necessarily, but the whole show as a whole.
A few things for me that I thought it was really funny when Karl says talking about New Year's Eve and what I mean. I can't wait till we actually talk about that New Year's Eve that Ricky and Karl spend together, because this one they don't spend together, do they?
No, it's the Christmas they spend together.
Yeah, that's it. And but like when he says, I took Suzanne out for a walk. And I like how he probably would have considered that as a present. Like, I took her out for a walk, as if that's like a thing that I've done. Tick that. And this whole episode is all about what Karl got Suzanne for Christmas, which was
that's part of it. It's not all about that, but yeah, that's a big hook on the episode.
So do you think he bought those condoms as a joke, or he was being genuine?
Yeah, I think, look, the thing we know about Karl is that he's like the sort of person, he kind of comes across as an idiot, like, but deliberately a lot of the time. He is an idiot in some ways, but he's very, very funny. He would have known buying those condoms that it would have made Suzanne kind of laugh, and that's kind of why he would have bought them. But I do think it's because I do imagine it, like it's a very good point by Steve, I think, makes it. It's like, yeah, so I went to Boots, and yeah, you walk past all the vanity cases, the makeup, all the things, and he would have done. But I think Karl's kind of knows that would have been funny. Yeah, absolutely.
I know this is a bit, I don't want to talk about this, but talking about Karl and condoms, I can't not think about Karl not having sex.
Well, yeah, that's
And it really creeps. I was thinking about whether I should or shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. I was just like, I can't imagine Carl having sex.
no, having achieved, getting.
Yeah, I know, a
Yeah, I
moment.
know. It's a,
And I don't want to think about that. But he's buying condoms with that intention. And I was just like, I just can't imagine Carl being that passionate or being, loving or affectionate. That's not in his vocabulary or character. I can't imagine that, and I
yeah,
don't want to imagine that either. And like you were talking about, obviously the fireman story, where it was like midpoint and having to go away, as it were.
yeah, but we'll get to that when it.
But it's just like I love that, just the relationship between Carl and Suzanne and how
He does talk about. He does just mention in an earlier episode, like, he says, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says like they're talking about sex, and he's like, oh, it wouldn't bother me now. What if you were interested? And he goes, I know you're 30.
He's 30. I'm 30. I mean,
Yeah,
to
I'm
be fair, I
36.
see his point. See
Yeah,
his
yeah.
point.
But, I think, but obviously, anyway, let's not get too deeply into that. But Carl must have sex. But he kind of, it is. I know what you mean. It is strange to think of him having sex, but that's the thing. If you said condoms and anyone, you automatically think of them out, even though you're not trying to. Like if I said a rabbit now, you're thinking of a rabbit right now in your head, and you can't help it.
Thinking of a monkey.
Or so all he could think of was a monkey. He said empty his mind. You
It's a
couldn't.
monkey. No, it reminded me of when I did actually go to Boots to buy some condoms for an ex-girlfriend for Valentine's Day, and I was also holding like a big deluxe, a bunch of flowers, and that for whatever reason they didn't scan through, and so the cashier had to come over and like help me to scan it through, and I'm there holding some flowers and buying like a 20 pack of condoms, and it was just, it really
that is a low moment.
it was so low because I was just like, and they were like the bottom of the barrel roses that, the only ones I could afford, and I was trying to do the cliche thing of buying roses because I thought that's what boyfriends do. And just the thought that I'm just going to put these flowers down, want to see you, and we're just going to jump in the bedroom and have some sex.
Yeah.
Enjoy this.
Buying roses makes it slightly worse because buying roses with it, because you're kind of, it's like that's a romantic thing. So the first thing, she should have seen the roses from a way off when she was walking to the and then a box of condoms. So it's like I'm using this romantic gesture to try and get intercourse. It's like.
But there's no easy way around it unless you bought them separately and planned it ahead, I suppose.
Right. But you should never be embarrassed. I don't want this show to talk too much about condoms, but just in general, there are things I get embarrassed by, and that probably would be one. But obviously now with self-checkouts, you just.
What is the thing that you are most embarrassed buying for?
The thing I'm most embarrassed about.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe condoms would be up there. Yeah.
I'd never get embarrassed like buying stuff like that, and I probably would even buy, things for my girlfriend like.
You've just told a story where you got incredibly embarrassed buying.
Yeah, but that was ages ago. I always get embarrassed when we've talked about this before, but when I buy a set of ingredients that can only mean that I'm making one particular dish. So if I buy like mince, tomato puree, chopped tomatoes, and onions, I'm going to be putting other things in. But let's say
look at my shopping list. that's on mine.
But I know, and then some pasta or whatever. She's going to know that I'm making spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah.
Now, for whatever reason, I hate the fact that she knows, or he knows, that I'm
sexist.
I am
subservient role.
Subservient role. That she knows that I'm having spaghetti bolognese when I go home.
Yeah, it's that thing, and actually, it's we wrote something about this as well. Like, it's that thing of buying something, whatever it is, where even if it's not an embarrassing thing you're going to do with it, people know that what you're going to do with it. Like, so we wrote a thing about buying an ironing board and how embarrassing like it is, because you can't hide it, and people just look at you thinking, oh, he's going to do some ironing later. Like he's buying that board to do some ironing.
He's the sort of bloke that irons his clothes.
Doesn't even own an ironing board, and he's clearly in his 40s. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's that thing of you reveal information about yourself to strangers, but
Yeah.
I don't get particularly embarrassed by stuff. Anyway, let's sort of return more to the show.
So I like the bit where they're talking about Christopher's, the restaurant. And even just saying that now, just saying restaurant, the one thing the show has done is made me say the word restaurant as restaurant. I've been in so many situations, because that's how Carl says it. And I've been in so many situations where I've gone restaurant. I'm like, why are you saying that? And we did get a comment in the week earlier talking about like, things that you sort of like the imitation of like things that we say in the show and stuff like that. But it's in
Oh, the
relation,
bad comment.
yeah,
Oh,
some
we're
bad.
gonna no. Okay, well,
I'm not talking
I'm
about it.
not thinking. No, we're not going to talk about it. I just there's a comment that was deleted, but it really, to say, I just say we are our genuinely ourselves here. We clearly quote and imitate for little tiny little slivers of time, Ricky, and we do those quotes because we're doing a podcast about the show. And we talked about how people do those quotes in real life to people who don't even know about the show. We're doing it knowingly. We're not. No part of me thinks I want to be, or I am, or I might be the next Ricky Gervais or the next Steve Merchant. I just wanted to
Absolutely
make that
not.
comment.
You would never be up
I'd
there.
never be up there. But
But I was going to say,
overall, you, mate. But go
but that
on.
was an example of a time where the show has really impacted me and affected my speech and my pronunciation, as it were. And I've always said restaurant, but there have been certain times I've gone restaurant,
Strong.
and I quite like it. I quite like the way he pronounces that. But I like the way that he cocked up how he's totting up the value of everything, of all of his gifts for Suzanne, because I've definitely he's quite selfish sometimes, Carl, isn't he? And
Yeah.
in another episode he's talking about, oh no, when they go into the plane, he says, well, got the value, got to buy me an extra Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like Carl just can't have it. Like he can't just give, of the freedom of himself. He has to want something in return. It has to be equal. It has to be fair. And to be honest, that's that same thing, when you buy a present for your girlfriend or your partner or whoever it is, and you buy something that you can use as well, like a food processor or
But the classic is Homer Simpson buying Marge a bowling ball with his name on it.
yeah.
That's the classic, And Ricky mentions that occasion. But the thing about Karl is he doesn't want to receive gifts because he doesn't want to have to do anything. It's like, oh, what do I have to do for you in return? And it is that thing. And you could call it mean, but you could, if you were looking at it from another point of view, you could call it a fair point of view. Like he's kind of got that. It's quite a simplistic thing where I give something, I get something. The world isn't like that. It's full of nuance, and we give stuff sometimes more than we receive, and vice versa. But Carl's kind of quite dead. No, I
Oh,
give.
no, my girlfriend does exactly the same thing where she was like, where she went all out and got her friend like this great gift, right? She and like alcohol, like really delicious, Japanese gin
Yeah,
and presents and flowers and everything. When it came to her birthday, she got gin mixers. So not even gin, but like they're
that's
like
like you might as well get some
they
Robinsons,
yeah,
or it's like
that's what it
orange
was.
juice.
It's pretty much the same. It was like it wasn't even a liqueur, wasn't even alcoholic in any way. It was just like raspberry flavoring in a
Mm.
bottle. Four of them.
That's
We didn't.
yeah.
I'll be honest, we've never used them.
Yeah, that would be annoying. Like, because I'm sure she didn't give that really nice gift so that she got a nice
Of
gift
course
back.
not.
But it is nice that you would get you do kind of expect that
That's why I've never got you a present.
well, you did. Mars got me a 30th birthday present when I was 35 years old. That's when he got it
You've got
5
to
years
manage
late.
expectations, mate. You've got to
And
manage
the only
expectations.
reason he got it for me is because I got him a present.
That's not true, and I've bought it already. So let's move
Yeah,
on. Carl's comment about nudists and sitting on a white couch. Now they never ever talk about that, and they sort of like laugh, and they don't really understand why that would be a big deal. But I've
what do
always
you mean they
thought,
don't understand why it would be a big deal? In what
well,
way?
if you're a nudist,
Yeah, but who do you not
oh,
under?
Ricky,
Like,
no,
if you
Ricky and
have,
Steve never talk about it.
oh, but they do. Yeah, they do reference. Obviously, it was on a show, 100 Greatest Moments. I don't know how that was on a show of 100 Greatest Moments, but it must. 2002 was a
Slow year.
slow year. Yeah. But yeah, it's just it's a funny little quote and a funny little thing. But it's interesting to hear. I think one of the reasons I particularly like this show is there's a lot of real life stuff in it, like real life, like sometimes they just talk around subjects and kind of theoretical things, whereas this is like Carl got the wrong day for New Year's Day. He bought his girlfriend condoms. They talk about actual things that have happened, and I quite like that. It's kind of like it's like a real show.
How excited are you about pubs opening again, Gary?
Well, at the risk of sounding like
An absolute alcoholic,
mid-30s alcoholic, I am excited about pubs opening again. I didn't go to pubs that often. We met weekly or fortnightly, something like that. Other than that, I would go to pubs with one or two people at a time, once a week maybe. And but so I'm not constantly in pubs. But
don't need to justify yourself, mate. Don't need to justify yourself with that bottle of gin you've got in the background.
It's brandy actually. I particularly we love pub gardens, don't we?
We do. I do love a bloody
summer, and
it's the perfect way to spend your summer in a pub garden.
Well, not the whole summer, but
no, but I do have a particular fondness. It's just because you're outside, it's sunny, hopefully, and you've got your shades on. The weather's good.
If we're in a pub garden, usually it's belting down with rain or snow. You remember when we sat in a pub garden when there was a blizzard, like a proper blizzard, and we still sat in a pub garden. But we just like it, and it's kind of like sometimes in the pub it can sort of smell a bit and of the beer on the counter, and it's not that nice. But when you get into the pub garden, even if it's a dodgy pub garden, we go to that one where we're sat right next to a huge bin where they throw out all their food rubbish, and it's just smell of it. But
one where it's like a big Thai. It's a Thai kitchen.
Yeah, that's the one.
Right,
yeah, that one. But we're
next to a bin. It's such a glamorous podcast life, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's kind of like that thing of I never appreciated or looked forward necessarily to going to the hairdresser. But now, 10 weeks in, 12 whatever, I'm really looking forward to seeing hairdressers. I'm looking forward to pubs opening, but within reason. I'm not so desperate that I can't, I'm like you, but I'm kind of...
I got a bit drunk at the weekend, and I followed my stylist on Instagram. And I had no motive, and I was thinking, I could just ask him, does he mind coming around? And I'll pay him like extra. It's just
funny that whole sentence. I can't engage with that whole sentence. Everything in it is unfamiliar to me. I followed my stylist on Instagram. I don't have a stylist. I have a hairdresser. Johan is very good. I pay like 10 quid or 12 quid, something like that. just get it in short size. I don't have Instagram. You're like we're very similar in some ways, but we're so different. It's just so funny. That whole sentence was like, what?
Well, let's talk about something that you're more familiar with, which is our favourite quote.
Wow, I'm just gonna say, that's the cleverest segue you've ever done.
It
wasn't that clever, but it was the cleverest.
Yeah, well, it's just smooth, isn't it? It's just smooth.
It was smooth, and the only thing that would ruin it is if I kind of sort of mentioned it, referenced it, and started talking about it.
Don't do that.
So I won't do that. But go on,
Gary. What do you want to kick us off? What are your favourite quotes? He's checking his phone for his notes.
Yeah, because there might go in my notes. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with my favourite, and the reason is because I know you'll have this in there, and I want to get him first. And I'll say to this, and don't say it, but I'll say to this is one we say to each other quite a lot, and it's just so satisfying to say. Better call them up and see if they've got any haddock on the menu. It's just the way he says it. He sort of does that thing where he deliberately sort of stumbles over his words to make it more profound. I don't know.
But he didn't even. I like that because he didn't even plan to say that when he set that up.
just called them up and said, God, he had it. He was just, as he was stumbling over the word "got," he was thinking of what
about
to
the
say.
next.
Like,
Yeah.
and it just is so satisfying to say.
My one is well, we'll leave it about rituals. I think you said it before the
we've
break.
done it.
We've done it. No, we've done it. That was it. It's good to have a flathead in India.
My next one is another great example. I've said it before. I'm not going to repeat myself. Mars and I, we talked about pub gardens opening, but we also talked about repeating ourselves on the show and how we shouldn't do it. Is one thing we do. But Ricky is such a good actor, and this is a tiny little example. I'm not saying he deserves an Oscar for this or it's the best acting ever, but to come up with this on the fly, it's really well acted. Mom, I'm recording this for XFM. And he doesn't, again, he hasn't thought about what he's going to say before he says it, but he goes into, like, if Steve or Karl had done that little bit, it just wouldn't have sounded so fun. It sounded so real, but that is exactly what a teenager would sound like.
Exactly. He's just talking about how shit the library is. My one is pass boots. I just love the way he says pass boots.
Oh yeah, pass boots. Popped in. We talked about this before. You get a darker one.
What's that?
About the sofa. You get.
Oh right, yeah.
One.
Well, I'm not getting a good vibe off you.
Yeah.
Talking about the features.
Yeah.
It's just the way he's being so down on his features. Well, I've got some stuff, but it's not that good.
I know, but it's like, that's the atmosphere of this show. Is like, oh God, do I have to? It's like the show is like all of them saying to themselves, do I have to do this bit? Do I have to do this?
Ricky has a brilliant one where he goes, John's got a moustache anecdote, and Ricky just goes, yeah, like a resound.
Yeah, like
like it's quite disappointing.
I know, it's so offensive to do that as well as someone said. It's like, it's genuinely offensive, but they're all kind of like that on the show. They're all like that with each other, which is funny.
Yeah.
I got your pumice stone.
And your pumice stone?
Your pumice stone.
What is a pumice stone?
It's like a little porous sort of rock. It's got.
For good luck.
No, I don't know. I think you can rub it against your skin and like the dead skin comes off and it's good.
Right. When I was walking back from that Christmas meal that I bought my girlfriend for 150 quid.
For 150 quid.
That is a lot for a meal, isn't it?
Yeah. Once on Valentine's Day, I went to this restaurant. It was really nice, but it came to over 100 quid. But that's the only time I've been with two, and it's come to over 100. I'm not boasting, by the way, because that was one. I'm in out of 36 Valentine's Days. It was just one. No, you come here tomorrow.
Come here tomorrow.
I love that.
Oh,
yeah, it's good acting.
Yeah, it was a war. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a war. Yeah. You see, I can't even be bothered. Because he's really genuine. That's why he really is annoyed that he's not joking there. Like, see, I can't even be bothered.
My last one is 72 quid from Ricky. He's talking about the price of shoes.
Because the reason he's saying that is because he said the two. So most people would say, I spent 70 quid for shoes. But he's like 72.
He's remembered the specific amount.
Yeah. So that's our favourite quotes, and that's let us know what your favourite quotes are online on the listening posts at XFM.
Love that you think you know what you're talking about.
And by the way, if you're thinking, we'll get a comment saying if you're on the XFM listening post, and Ricky said that, and so he's copying Ricky's.
Don't be bitter, mate. Don't be bitter. It's fine. It's good. Onwards and upwards.
I'm not saying Miles generally, but Miles can be so bitter about comments we get. Not always.
No.
But you absolutely can. Absolutely can. Don't say.
I wouldn't do that.
I
love any comments that we get, which brings me on to our next feature.
When we got 3 stars, Miles mentioned it about 12 times.
Don't worry about it, which brings us on to our next feature, which is XFM and the community. Now,
I like this one. I like this feature. Miles reads out feedback from listeners because he gathers it. Although I'll say you should be proud of me. I actually went onto social media this week, didn't I? And I wrote something. I'm venturing into it.
Every Sunday we post Rockbusters. So do head over to our Twitter thread. That's at Trout_DE. Gary set that up. I'm not responsible for that.
I can't tell a lie. I did. I don't know.
Can't tell a lie. There you go. Truth from the horse's ass.
Miles's Rockbusters this week were pretty good. Two
Thank
of
you
them.
very much.
Two of
I
them.
work on them throughout the week. It takes me ages.
Hmm.
Because I know the threshold's so high, because you don't want it to be too much like Carl, but I'm trying to be me,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to be quite clever.
I don't think you should have resigned from your job though, mate, but it's your choice.
This
Yeah.
is general feedback. The first one is from Erin. Erin says, wanted to send you a couple of thoughts after listening to the last podcast, because obviously it's been a while.
Yeah.
Firstly, regarding Suzanne's privacy, did you notice that in the animated episodes of the podcast, they never show Suzanne's face?
Yeah, I
They
did. Yeah.
show her quite a lot, actually, but never her face. So, yeah, I take it she is very private.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that it's a very good point, Erin, that they don't show her face in the XFM shows. Most spouses of famous people we've seen pictures of, or they might give the odd interview. Suzanne, absolutely nothing. So
So much speculation over what she looks like, though, because I remember even when I first listened to the shows all those years ago, that was the only person. I don't know why. It was just that curiosity. You just want to know who's close to Carl, who has like that immediate access. So I know it's in the same way that you never see can't find his parents online. I know what Steve's parents look online because they're in the office.
Yeah, one of them is.
And I don't know why I care. I do.
No, but particularly his girlfriend, because if a man or a woman, you look at them and you think they're attractive or less so, I don't know. But with Karl, it's very hard to judge how attractive he is. Like, I think he's pretty good looking. Like, I look at him and think, he's got that shape. He's got a good.
Do you think he looks good of hair then?
Yeah, exactly. But, But I think a lot of people want to know what people's partners look like to see how well or badly they've done, which is not a thing I endorse, but I of course have been guilty of it too. But we always want to know what people's partners look like, because you think, well, how attractive is Karl? Like, I wonder what his partner would look like. I've never wondered what his parents look like, but yeah, we often think of. I've often thought, what does Suzanne look like? There is one picture that's been online. We won't share a link. I don't even have a link, but I wouldn't share one anyway. But of a picture that's taken like with an early camera phone, it looks like not that good, and there's just a woman looking backwards, and apparently that is Suzanne.
Well, she's a journalist at BBC, isn't she, for sport?
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. Like, she's in media, so she could easily have got arranged interviews or just had a picture with Karl at some event or anything, just picture out, and she'll be able to get it into the media. But she's very, very private, and I respect that about her. We never we'd never even approach her to do this show, but at the same time it will be fascinating if she did, but obviously she won't. But you're right, it's hard to be private in this world with camera phones. Yeah.
I've just got an idea. What about if, I'm looking at different ways to make money during lockdown, right? What about if we did XFM London...
XFM prostitution, Gary and Mark.
XFM London tour, where we took listeners of the show around famous landmarks around London where Ricky, Steve and Karl went to. What do you think of that?
Yeah,
20 quid a ticket.
So Miles is going to be taking some tours of around London for the listeners on his own. Gary will not be involved in. I refer to myself in the third person. Let's just say I will not be involved. That's.
Well, you're missing out. You're missing out, mate. You're missing out on 40 quid.
One, you won't earn any money because no one would do it, and two, you don't even know. Like, you're not a London tour guide. He does live in London now, and he thinks of himself as a London boy, but
I'm not a London boy. I never said that.
He's still getting used to electricity. So thanks for your comment, Erin.
This one is from Xanthia, who is a regular fan of the show. And looking forward to you guys discussing Karl's ever famous condom gate. I personally think Steve was wrong to pressure Karl to get a gift, and Karl clearly says, "We said we wasn't going to get each other much," and you took her out for a meal. That's sort of present pressure.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because most people will listen to that and think, Of course, Steve should advise Carl to get his girlfriend a present
But
for Christmas. But
Steve
no,
would never
no,
do that
Steve.
himself.
Well, he probably would if he had a girlfriend. I think he'd splash out on a lady now and again. But as Xanthia says, he probably it is a bit mean of him to do. Like I kind of agree with Xanthia thinking about it. Like it's kind of, you say you're not going to get anything, and most couples say that, but they get little gifts. But Carl wasn't going to do that, but that's Carl's decision. But Steve pressured him into it. Yeah. Thanks anyway for your email, Xanthia, and or you say email. What I'm living in the early 2000s. What is it?
Torture. Tweet. It was a tweet.
Xanthia, thanks for listening.
And Xanthia, if you do ever want to give us a gift, and I know you're a wine scientist, then we'll take a D Trout Spinners branded bottle of wine. White in colour. I like red too.
Yeah, well, I'd say the worst time Miles and I have ever had together is for a short period, a couple of months in a row. Miles always drinks cider, but a couple of months we were ordering bottles of wine, so we were both drinking white wine, and we were I think we opened our 5th bottle at the pub. And we were writing something as well, and oh my god, it was grim. I was so bad at it. So Xanthia, maybe I'll have the if you're going to send anything, I'll have
money.
Some money. And send money. If you just maybe go to a local Threshers and get Miles a couple of ciders and chuck them in.
No, I like Aspels.
That's her job as food.
Yes, we've spoken about it before.
I forgot, but yeah. Oh God, I'd love to. Xanthia, do you want to, by any chance, enter a degree, like a sort of 4-year picture, and we can swap?
This one is from Jack Hughes, and he is a new listener. Hi, Jack.
Jack Hughes.
Yeah.
Sounds dodgy. I'm suspicious.
I'm suspicious. What is the name of the shop that Karl goes to? Hugh Faze.
Hugh Faze, yeah.
I think the podcast is great. I'm only 19 and got into both the XFM recordings and podcast through my mum's ex-husband. And being young, I don't really have anyone to discuss the shows with, so I find your podcast interesting to see which of my opinions on the show and its cast are shared among others. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Jack. Was that? Yeah, thank you.
Jack's 19 and he's listening to the show. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I think if Miles and I think about the sort of average demographic of people who listen, we kind of roughly think 30s. I agree. 19. I'm delighted we've got a 19-year-old. I'd love to have 60-year-old listeners, 19-year-old listeners. But I think, Jack, what I would say is it's not necessarily because you're 19 that you don't have other people to talk to about the show. I think most people, whatever their age, experience that. It's so niche that it's very rare that two people independently who live near each other, who interact with each other, come across the shows. So, but really interesting that they've kind of got a reach beyond, our demographic.
Well, it never really happens to me. I think I replied to Jack and I said, it's only ever really happened 2 or 3 times where I've met someone who was an XFM fan when I've really had to make a point that I'm an XFM fan by just relentlessly quoting quotes from the fucking shows. Just hoping that one of them lands and just going, you like XFM too? Great.
Yeah, it's obviously
the things that you have to go to make people listen to enjoy the same things that you enjoy is insane.
The caveat to that is obviously us two met and we both so that is what we're both very lucky because we both independently genuine. It's not like you meet someone, they say, oh yeah, I like XFM, you start quoting stuff and they're like, they don't get any quotes, they don't recognize anything. They've listened to a couple of shows, but we're very lucky to have met each other, and we want to get that vibe out to other people.
Click it out.
The vibe. Thanks to you, Jack.
Yeah, thank you, Jack, and keep listening. And 4 stars upwards. Yeah. Things I asked Twitter. Things you'd like to see filmed. We had a recent discussion about what XFM moments would you like to have been a video camera present. And this is what people had to say. So this is from Tal, who is a regular listener. Hi, Tal. When Stephen punches Karl just because of the sound he makes. And, of course, Mammoth. Oh, and Karl pronouncing Rockbusters band names when he tries to fuse Metallica with Metal Liquor.
Metal liquor. You'd like to have seen a camera in those moments. Yeah, they would have been good moments. I think I'm trying to think of my own now, but
Yeah, we've got Mr. Dilkington. Mr. Dilkington says, the monkey news when Karl left the room, then came back running in, shouting, "Right, I've been listening to that out back there. What do you mean the monkeys say? What do you mean the monkeys say?"
Right. That's a great one. Tales were good as well, but that's great because often the things I would have liked to have seen recorded are when something happens in the studio that's not normal, like Ricky leaving the studio and just coming back in or whatever, like something like that is definitely something I'd like to see. Thank you, Mr. D.
This is from Matt Gibson. Matt Gibson is a new listener. Hi, Matt. Take my shoes off for money. You've got nice ankles and that. And of course, Rodney Yaboosh.
Yeah, again,
He also went on to say, when Ricky has gone quiet, but he's making Karl laugh during monkey news, Karl seems to have tremendous difficulty getting past Little Gang of Monkeys.
Yeah, I'd love to have seen exactly what Ricky was doing there.
Yeah, we've always said that would be the thing. Like, if he was getting his genitals out, do you think he'd be doing that?
No, I don't. I think basically Ricky's just one of those people, and he's obviously naturally very funny, but what he was probably doing during that was absolutely nothing but just looking at Karl.
Yeah.
And just that thing where it's just so funny suddenly just looking at their face. So I think he was looking at Karl whilst like nearly laughing himself, and I think that's probably what he's doing. But I'd like to have seen Steve take off Karl take off Steve's sock as well. Yeah, some of it creepy.
For 20 quid.
Yeah.
I imagine it would have been a lot like in the office, the Microsoft training on YouTube, the bloopers there.
Yeah.
I reckon it was a lot like that when they've got the bloke who goes, it's Angelos Epithemu who's playing them, and also the guy that was in the Office Christmas specials who's in the groceries, and Ricky just goes, I'm sorry, he has got a funny face though. Any bloopers featuring Ricky Gervais is so funny.
Yeah, but sometimes he's not necessarily doing anything wacky like with his arms on. He's just looking at someone, and and then he bursts out laughing. Like my favourite bloopers are the ones from the Christmas specials of The Office, like where he's Tim Cantor and he's no, actually it's not that one. It's where he's going like Bishop Muzorewa, and I laugh so much at that because I remember Bishop Muzorewa. It's such a random person to think of. But, we're getting a bit off the subject, but yeah. Any more? We've
got one more. This is from Pate's Mouth, and he says, "Surely it's no one likes to pick on an invalid gate."
Yeah.
Because there was some frosty silence after they said invalid in relation to Steve.
I don't even like saying it now, but yeah, that's a good one. That's good. Yeah, I mean, basically, I think I said this last week, but part of me would have loved for the webcam to be working the whole time because I would have loved to have seen it. But also part of me is glad it's not because, as Karl said, it does change radio. They would have all acted differently if they're on a webcam. Ricky might have done something that was a bit wacky, whereas actually when there's no webcam or the webcam's shitty and they know they're not being filmed, basically, it's funnier that he just looks at Karl. That's kind of funnier, and it does change radio. So I'm kind of glad that there aren't clips of these moments. In a way, it's like we're all
it exists in your imagination.
Our own version of exactly what happened, and that probably is funnier than the reality, which would have been funny, but it's funnier what we build up in our heads.
Thank you to everyone who tweeted us, who emailed us, and thank you any new listeners. Do stay tuned. We've got lots of fun stuff in the pipeline. What sort of stuff's in the pipeline?
Next episode. I've given Miles a heck of a lot of work to do today in editing. I'm gonna lie to you. I'm not
if you want to get in touch with us, please do. We love hearing from you. So that's tweet us at trout_de or trout.de@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram. Gary's not. I'm at Duchess_Purnell. And yeah, just otherwise send us a smoke signal or a magpie or whatever it is, and we'll hear back from you.
Yeah, absolutely. We
We're
always
gonna
like.
wrap up now.
Wait, hang on, let me just say
Go on.
again. We'll don't put that bit in where I said let me. Yeah, we always love getting feedback. So thank you very much for it. Means a lot to us, and yeah, it's great that you interact with the show. And next week we'll be doing episode 21, so tune in for that. And I think, right, we've got a little. Well, it's a little special ending to this show. So Mars is going to explain what that is.
Yeah, so I think everyone, if you remember that episode where Steve's got a new feature where they play three CDs from different sort of independent artists. And I actually spoke to the band members from Picture Center, if anyone remembers them. Literally had to scout them down on because their songs on Spotify. So we're actually going to wrap up instead of the Trout Spinners library, which I know Gary's like.
I'm absolutely devastated when you talk with the Trout Spinners library.
But that is there in the description if you want to listen to every week. Usually Gary and I select a song and put it into our Spotify playlist, which we'll make available. But no,
these CDs were in my bag last week.
So to play us out, it's Picture Center. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening with Miles and Gary, D Trout Spinners.
See you next week.